Hello, this is Steve Yarbrough. Welcome to my part 2 video on how to use the Humminbird Mega Live in landscape mode while trolling. When I did the first video, I got lots of requests to provide additional details on the setup, how to do a variety of things. So the purpose of this video is really to go a little more in depth, not just about showing fish, looking at the lures, etc., but of the setup itself. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. First, let's talk about what screens I have set up. So typically on my Apex 19, I have this setup, which is basically Mega Live on half the screen, and then the other half is split between side imaging on top and down imaging on the bottom. But I also use Mega 360 at the same time. So basically, I'm trying to use all the tools available to me. And on the Mega 360, I have that using the new Solix Apex 3070 split. So 30% of the screen is the chart view, and 70% is the full screen of Mega 360. Then sometimes I actually do full screen on Mega 360, and basically it just gives a better representation of what's coming up, because I don't care what's behind me, because I'm getting that with down image, with side image, and with Mega Live. So in this particular shot, I'm over a school of fish, but I also have some fish coming up about 70 to 80 feet in front at about 11 o'clock. So I was able to change course and actually go over those fish because of the Mega 360. Next, I want to talk about the physical setup. I actually have my Mega Live attached to my Mega 360 because I don't need to rotate the Mega Live. It's always pointing aft, and it's always shooting from a single position. So this is a close-up. I have it mounted, the Mega Live I have mounted to my pontoon using a Fishing Specialties mount. And you can see at this point, the Mega Live is in landscape mode. It's pointing rear. In this case, it flips down, and it's mounted right above the Mega 360 head. So if you look on the Humminbird website, this is the forward view mode. Then you basically push the buttons to flip the transducer up in order to get it into the landscape mode. Also, if you look at the installation guide, there's multiple positions that you can swivel the Mega Live transducer to for the different modes. Landscape actually has 4 different positions. If you look, there's 2 different lines for landscape, and there's 2 positions in between those lines. Forward has a single position, but you can do multiple positions there as well. And then down is basically pointing straight down. So those are the various positions. If you look at the cone itself, basically the first click is what Humminbird refers to as the 80%. I like to think of it as it's pointing 10% down, but Humminbird measures from the straight down and sort of counts backwards from there. So 80% is the first click, and then again 10% down. The cone is narrow. This is probably depicting the cone a little thicker than it really is. I've heard anywhere from 20 to 35 degrees is the cone. So here's the next click is a 70 degree, 20% down, then 60, 30% down, 50, 40% down, and actually 40 is the this position is actually in the forward view position, which is the 40 degree mark. And it'll work just fine in that position as well. So one of the things you will want to change this for is depending on how deep you're running your lures and how deep the fish are. The shallower the fish in the lures, the more level you want it. And I typically run it anywhere from 20 degrees down to 30 degrees down when my lures are in the 15 to 22 foot range. Seems to work well for me. So next, what I would like to do is talk about the screen itself. So in this particular screen, I've done a screen capture on my Apex, and without any fish or anything else. So all the dots on the left side are actually things that that I've got in the water. So, and then the side image is up on the upper right, and the down image is on the lower right. You'll see that although there's schools of fish there, I'm not picking them up because of the depth I've got my transducer at. So the top is the motor. That's basically the foot of the motor showing up. I've got a pair of 3-ounce weights that are trailing 25 feet behind some planer boards. Then I've got a pair of A-rigs that are attached to my downriggers that are trailing 50 feet behind the downriggers. And then I have a pair of U-rigs that are attached 50 feet behind the planer boards. So basically, I can see all those elements in the water while I'm fishing. So now I want to talk about the how I use the Mega Live setup and how I actually view it while I'm fishing. I'm going to put it in full screen mode. What I'm doing here is a playback of a sonar recording. This is the Mega Live landscape view, which is the normal view when you're in landscape mode, but I actually prefer to use the down view, and I'll talk more about that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause the sonar playback and show you a couple of things about the landscape view. One of which is a setting you can do to add a grid. This is what they call the radial grid. And then there's also a rectangle grid. I really don't like using either because my lures are in the same spot all the time. If you were casting, they would be beneficial, but for my sake, they really just clutter up the screen. So I tend to not use the grids when I'm fishing. In reality, I don't even use this display mode when I'm fishing, even in landscape. So what I like to do is use the down view as opposed to landscape view, which you can do, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So first thing I'm going to do is resume the video, and then I'm going to go to the down mode view, which is perfectly fine. You can be in landscape mode and still use the down view. You'll see a school of stripers coming through here. They literally attack, gobble up one of my lure that's on the left, leaving the one on the right alone. And what I discovered is that two of my lures, two of my sassy shads, in Tennessee you're allowed to have 3 lures with hooks. I have lots of spinners and hoochie skirts and other things on my U-rigs, but only 3 hooks. So 2 of those were twisted. So basically, it didn't look right. It wasn't operating right. So although the fish would stop, look at it, they wouldn't pay much attention. So what I'm going to do now is show you some of the features in this mode as well. There's also a grid that you can display in this mode, in down mode. Again, it's basically a crosshatch square grid. But again, doesn't do me any good because my lures are always in the same place and all I'm doing is watching fish reaction to the lures. If you were casting, it would come in handy, but you know, I don't need that. The other thing that that you can do in down mode or down view using landscape mode on the transducer that you can't do on landscape view is change the width of what you're looking at. There's basically 3 different, I guess, call them modes that down view will go in. And we're going to take a look at those 3 modes. So right now, the top grid goes out to about 60 feet, and I'm looking 65 feet down. You'll see there's 3 different modes. There's narrow, full, and wide. Right now, I've got it on wide. If I change it to narrow, what it's going to do is it's going to like zoom in on the middle. It'll keep the distance still 65 feet, but now across the top, it's much narrower. So it's a way of enlarging the middle portion. and full basically is halfway between. In my case, I always run with it in wide mode because that gives me the most coverage, and I see things that may be out on the periphery, which I would want to know if there were fish I was passing by that were on the far right or far left, so I could make a turn, come back, and go after them. So that's a little more detail on the setup I use, how I use it when I'm trolling for stripers. Obviously, the same thing could be applied to trolling for other schooling fish as well, or any type of trolling for walleye, whatever. And I am planning to do a part 3, and in part 3, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the various transducer angles and the difference that makes, and then how you can use that to determine at least in a range, the depth that the fish are running. Although there's no, you don't get depth with landscape mode. What you get is fish where they are from right to left, and fish where they are from back to front, or the distance away. You don't get depth. Although you don't get depth, there are ways to judge, sort of within a range, what depth the fish are based on where they're entering and exiting the cone from the landscape mode. Hope this helps, and please leave comments below for any things you want to see in the next video. Thank you.